And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Wednesday night edition. Mike, I know we've been away, man. I was on the DL for a minute, brother, but I'm back and strong, man, looking to finish the year out strong and start the new year off right.
And let's not forget our other frat brother. We can't just
Oh
do
yeah, but
that.
we're going. I definitely want to introduce
Okay.
our. In fact, I'll let you do the introduction since you know these brothers so well.
All right. So definitely, well, our other frat brother Terrence. We actually had a party down here in the Silicon Valley over the weekend. So we've had our thing, and it was a good outing. And Terrence was with his lovely wife, and we had a lot of the couple set up. Of course, Terrence and Ricky, about silhouettes and how that is. So the layman out there might not know what we're talking about, but we had that going on, and it was a good way of us getting together. And it's one of the first parties because the pandemic knocked a lot of that out where we didn't get to congregate and all that. So it was a good time. So we got brother Terrence Mullins up in the house, and of course he's probably wearing the garb of the San Francisco 49ers, who now everybody's saying is the best team in football. And then we got our brother from Philly, Philadelphia, Michael Tillery, who was supporting the team that everyone had as the top, at least in the NFC. But they had a little tough moment, especially after that first quarter, because first quarter looked like they were about to put it on them. Those first two drives, now instead of getting 14, they got 6, and I think that was a harbinger of what was going to happen. And then the Niners got it going. So we got these two brothers representing San Francisco and Philadelphia, and there's a lot of connections: baseball, football, basketball, and all that. So we'll get into that, and also the cultures, because, of course, Philadelphia is known for, unfortunately, Rocky and that type of tough persona, and it pretty
Not
much.
to Michael.
Well, I know that. That's what I'm saying about how we get these mischaracterizations. So, and of course, the tough Italian represent Philly, and then of course you got Terrence over in San Francisco, where it's a certain perception, and not really into the realm of the African American. And they also had a movie called The Last Black Man in San Francisco, Danny Glover. So there's a lot of perceptions about our areas, and of course I got to deal with oh man, there's nobody black there. It's just Fonzie, Laverne, and Shirley, and all that. So I just want to talk about kind of how growing up in these areas. How was it growing up for you guys, knowing that you got a perception that may not be, the correct one? So we're going to get into that sometime throughout the show. And, of course, we're going to talk about sports, basketball, because we got the tournament, the Final Four. You got people crying about, oh, the Lakers got away with one last night. Nobody's saying that AR-15 wasn't fouled. I mean, how did he end up stumbling with the ball? He got bumped by Booker, which would have been his 6th foul. But then, no, they lost the ball and they gave LeBron a break. So it's always turn around LeBron. So we talk about that, and then, of course, any other sport that's going on. So we got a lot going on, but we got a short time, but we're going to get through it.
Before we came on the air to our viewers out there, and hey, thanks for tuning in, and it's good to be back. We were talking about some of the games that took back on Sunday, and Mike, and I want to start with you, Mike. When I watch some of these talking heads on TV, which I don't do a lot of actually, but I was under the weather, so I was watching. So I think people don't respect the value of winning one game at that level. It is extraordinarily hard to do, and everybody's practicing. All these teams, even the bad ones, have top flight athletes. And when I hear some of these guys, they're bumped, like everybody's on the Eagles case today. Eagles still a Super Bowl caliber team, but I guess they do it for the clicks or whatever. But is that something you have picked on? I see you shaking your head on that, Mike. Just the kind of extremism we get from some of the commentators today.
I was talking to my sister because she's a big sports fan. She used to she was a cheerleader when I was on the football field. So she's been a heavy on the sports intake. And I was saying to her that it seems like this year, out of every year, at least in my recent memory, that every game is ratcheted up. Every week seems like is something special. The reason why I'm not down on the Eagles is because every single week we have been playing the game of the year.
Yeah.
Every single week. This week we playing the game of the year again. Emotionally, we've all been athletes. Playing such pressurized games, you're not going to lose it all, but you're going to be frayed. I noticed it in A.J. Brown Sunday, on I think it was that second possession where they kicked a field goal. Another thing is this, I'm not going to harp on, the three games in 13 days. I don't think any of those players would speak of it as such. Yes, the Eagles have some deficiencies of offense on defense. They picked up a couple players recently. But to your point, this thing about the extremism of these football games, so even in college football games, I'm looking at. I remember a time where we only spoke about the MVP. It wasn't even like at the end of the season. It was like in the playoffs, so where people would begin to talk about who was going to win the MVP, this year, that year, whatever year. It's incredible to me what is happening, and I've been guilty of it myself on social media. Of I'm in the crib, so when we talk about the Eagles, my blood pressure goes up a little bit. It's we have to protect our hometown because I got the gift of gab and I can be a wordsmith. I've been going at a couple of people, this week, so to end the point, I am noticing something. I'm just trying to just kick back and relax and enjoy the games. I haven't put up anything about the Eagles this week on social media. I've been doing it a lot lately. I'm just gonna sit back and watch and chill. Because if Dallas loses this game here, I don't want to hear no more shit from nobody. They were kissing San Francisco ass this week, despite San Francisco beating their ass. That's incredible to me. Dallas Cowboy fans out there, if you were doing something, you were talking earlier, Ricky, about, it's hard. You can't call people bums, but I can call those suckers soft.
Hey, Terrence, you were shaking your head there as we were coming in.
But, for Philadelphia, there's a target on their back. That's why every game
is a big game. Yeah,
it's a big game. There's a huge target on their back because they went to the Super Bowl last year, and then they come out this year just blazing hot. Except for that game against the Jets, which was a bit of a fluke. They should be undefeated for all intents and purposes. But then you come across a team where, last year's game put a really sour taste in the mouth of the San Francisco 49ers. They felt like they were the better team had they had their quarterback. And so this whole week has been business. We are going to go in there and we're going to show them. And I wasn't, the first quarter, even though Philly completely dominated time of possession, yards, plays, everything, the fact that they came out of those drives with just 2 field goals, I said, they're going to be in trouble, big trouble, when Shanahan puts together some plays, gets things flowing, Purdy gets into a rhythm. So they are going to be in big trouble because they can get from the 20 to the 20, but after that, they weren't doing much of anything. And it showed. Once Shanahan started getting his play calling down, for a bit, I told you, Mike, I think Shanahan was kind of playing a ploy because he came out throwing the ball and really basic packages that he was throwing the ball. It was like he's letting these Philadelphia defensive players get a little, especially that D line, get a little far up the field just so he can throw some things at him. And there's a couple of times where Hassan Reddick, it'd get too far up the field, boom, right? His intensity and his aggressiveness was being used against him. And I thought, he Shanahan had something up his sleeve that we didn't know about.
But you know what? It is no doubt in my mind those two teams are going to meet again, probably for the NFC championship. They are the best two teams in that conference. But as Michael kind of hit on it, man, there are no perfect teams up there. The 49ers lost 3 straight at one point this year.
It just goes to show you that, you really have to be at your best. You got to have your best players. I mean, San Francisco lost 3 games in a row without Trent Williams, without Deebo Samuels, and Trent Williams. I mean, let's just be honest. He's the best left tackle in the game. And when he was down, I mean, Purdy couldn't get a minute of throwing time to save his life. And it made a difference. The run game was not where it needed to be because we run behind that big fella. He's going to create some space. So, you get Trent Williams back, you get Deebo back. Deebo is the only player, one of the few players in the league that can turn a 2-3 yard pass into a 50-yard touchdown. We saw that, even against him. Any missed tackle, that dude is gone. You don't get him on the first hit, he is gone. So
no doubt about it. And
having everyone healthy made a huge, huge difference. And then, also Philly was missing some players. I mean, they don't have their linebackers. Their defensive backfield ain't what it was last year. So, we can make the excuses, but hey, the game is the game. That's why we play the game.
I look at it this way. It was, despite, the adjustments that Shanahan made, play calling, the screens, he's pulling the guards, to make sure Hassan Reddick did move upfield. In this game here, with these strategic offenses that you're seeing in the NFL, pressure is way more important than coverage. It supremely is. And, you saw in that game, because Hassan Reddick obviously has blood in his mouth because, he is the one who injured Purdy. So, he's going to be
quarterbacks. Actually, he took out both quarterbacks last year.
Yeah, both of them, so he's going to be incentivized to get to Purdy. That's the thing. I had thoughts that the Eagles would lose this game here, but, we're 1-1. You will see each other in the AFC unless someone like Jordan Love catches fire.
Jordan Love, don't worry about him.
I'm just saying,
they can't beat us. They beat us Thanksgiving Day. I ain't worried about Jordan Love.
But I see something special in that team because they're all around the same age. Yeah. They're all around the same age. So the culture in that locker room, we all been in locker rooms, is galvanized. And when they're picking up what's happening with the coaches and becoming more comfortable with themselves on the field, and getting chunks of yards, and you're seeing this young quarterback who was much maligned early in the year become like a force right now. He's seeing what's going around the league. He wants to get out there and get some love. So I mean, I look at Green Bay and I don't underrate them at all because as this NFL has been throughout our lives, it has never been what the favorites are. You don't have a dominant team. I don't consider San Francisco a dominant team, not only because of their record, not only because of injuries. I look at what was happening with the Eagles and catching, everybody's right and left hook. And these were, great teams. It seemed like, okay, the Eagles go in and they beat Kansas City. Then they beat Buffalo. And now that they lose to San Francisco, all of a sudden, like there's a drop-off. They're just a drop-off in emotion. Now they can reset and get it back. I anticipate a lot more pressure coming at Purdy, especially from that right side again, which will happen in the AFC Championship. in the NFC Championship if they meet. I think I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you here. I really think Brock Purdy is the biggest weakness on the team.
Yeah, I
You know,
got
and that's not. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of him at all.
no,
I'm just saying that look, this dude got interchangeable running backs and wide receivers. He has George Kittle. He has Trent Williams, who's dressed in all black this whole week.
Whole
So he
team.
can handle his own business. He has a great team. What I'm saying about Brock Purdy is he has to grow into this status that he's acquiring right now from sports writers and fans alike.
I was watching.
He has been given a lot more than, say, a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts, despite their winning pedigree coming into the NFL. It feels disrespectful to me to hear all this Brock Purdy nonsense right now. And again, I'm not saying it because they beat up on the Eagles, because Eagles were dominated. I'm just saying, like, the adversity that Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson felt early in their career because of whatever, he never got that scrupiny.
Well, the guy was only the last player drafted.
Okay, well,
he wasn't even supposed to make the team.
I understand all that. What I'm saying is this: like, I was a big Brock Purdy fan when he was at Iowa State. I thought that he was very underrated. I thought that he should have been a Heisman Trophy candidate because of his poise. All that.
They weren't winning games.
I'm just saying like this because there seems to be like this debate going on about how much scrutiny dudes like Josh Allen and Brock Purdy are afforded. Man, look, damn all that. I'm going to speak objectively the same way Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts should have been spoken about objectively. I caught a lot of wreck here in Philadelphia because I always said that Jalen Hurts was the guy. I saw an interview with him before he went to Alabama, before he went to Oklahoma, and I said, I need that man on my team right now. You could hear his father. You could hear the poise. You could hear the thousands of plays that he saw, whether he had a Tonka truck or a football, watching his father coach all of these men in different classes. I said, this guy will be the starter no matter where he goes in the NFL because his team rallies behind him. They know that he will take them to victory in every kind of way.
I'm with you there. Let me get Mike Roberson in on this. But before I go to Mike, I just want to add the only thing about Purdy, he really hadn't seen any adversity yet because they keep winning. The most adversity he's really seen this year was the three-game winning streak. Hey, you guys talk. I actually have to step out for a minute. You guys keep the conversation going. Go ahead, Mike Robertson.
I mean, when we talk about adversity, though, let's just be honest. The dude does have weapons around him, but he's not the MVP of the squad. To me, the MVP of the squad that changed everything was when we got Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah,
that was.
I think it's Trent Williams.
Well, we did Trent Williams for 5 years, so
I'm saying I think he's the MVP of the team. I think
but then again,
rallied around him this week. They really rallied by him. When he said all black, everybody else put on all black.
Oh yeah, no. Don't get me wrong. When speaks, people listen.
Yeah.
But you still, it's almost like where a lot of people don't want to give credit to this. When Paul Gasol went to the Lakers, everybody wants to say, "Well," I said, "No, they were in the middle of the pack." New Orleans was the top team in the West before that trade, and it was a lopsided trade. You got Kwame Brown, you got rid of Kwame Brown, and you got Paul Gasol, who was probably the second best big man in the league at the time, and a 2010 player. And he comes there, and you could get rid of Kwame and all that stuff that went with that, and they didn't even keep Kwame. So you basically got him for nothing. I know people say, well, Marc Gasol developed and all that, but still, they went to 3 straight finals after he got there. So it's kind of the same thing, whereas when McCaffrey got there, San Francisco, was at a different level. But
it gave Shanahan a Swiss Army knife of a player. So now that he could use Debo and Christian McCaffrey interchangeably.
Yeah.
So now you don't know you've got one lining up in the backfield, you got a wide receiver lining up in the backfield, a running back at wide receiver, and all of the shifts and motions, the defense is going to be confused, especially if you're in a man-to-man defense. You're a linebacker, or and you're supposed to be guarding McCaffrey, and he's out at wideout. You're like, wait a minute, should I be here? You're a DB and you guarding Debo. He's lining up in the backfield, and then they shift in motion everybody. I mean, all he's doing is just trying to confuse before the ball is snapped. He's not
running Ayuk is,
and he's the best receiver. He's our best receiver.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say Anquan Boldish on third down? Like, he's one of the best third down receivers I've ever seen.
He's our best route runner.
Yeah,
by far.
Incredible.
Best route runner by far. So yeah.
All right. Well, now I want to get into when we talk about the two different cities. So we're all around the same age. So back in the 70s, when we probably first started really getting into sports. So Terrence, you're out here in the Bay, you're in San Francisco, but the teams over across the Bay, which are now defunct, they were winning. The A's won 3 in a row, then the Warriors won, and then the Raiders won. So what was it like for you growing up in San Francisco watching the East Bay win? Were you supportive of the whole Bay, or were you that, man, I don't like Oakland, man, I'm all about SF? And then, and I asked the same question for you later on after this, Michael.
Yeah, I won't say I didn't support Oakland teams, but I'm a homer. So Niners, I was always a Niner fan. I've never really been big on baseball, so don't mean about it. And then the Warriors, they're a Bay Area team. So whether you are Oakland, San Francisco, Fremont, San Jose, it doesn't matter. Everyone, that's the Bay Area team.
All right,
but
and of course, Oakland never got the distinction of being called the Oakland Warriors. I mean, remember they were the San Francisco Warriors when they first moved out here, and then when they said, "Oh, we're not going to play in San Francisco anymore. We're going to be Golden State. We're going to just give the whole state credit," even though the Lakers were already here, and then the Kings came later, and then the Clippers came. So it's kind of
you have to talk to management about that. Yeah, you'd have to talk to management about that. They are one of the few. They are one of the few teams. I think they may be the only team that doesn't have the city name.
Right, it's their nickname.
It's a
nickname of the state. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, Michael, once again, same thing to you. You grew up in the 70s when you probably learned about sports. You had Dr. J come in, and then that great Sixers team that somehow didn't win. And then of course you had the Phillies win in '78, and then of course the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl in '80. Actually played the Raiders. So what was it like for you growing up around that time frame, and then from the sports perspective?
So down Market Street, especially this time of year, it's very festive. We had this John Wanamaker's that was downtown. They had a monorail inside of the building that everybody had to go to for holidays. You wait in line for like 2-3 hours, and then the ride's only like 10 seconds or something like that, right? So this particular year, 1976, the 77, the bicentennial was happening, and you would go up Market Street, Broad Street, and you would see nothing but people waving flags, festive. It was an incredible atmosphere here in Philadelphia, given the historical, prominence, right? So, at this time, I just remember we were in a 69 Chevy Nova. I was probably sitting on a hump in the back. Remember, you sit on the hump, and I'm down more, but I'm looking up, seeing all the flash and stuff around, and also we hear on the radio that Julius Erving is here, and he was saying, Dr. J. He kept saying Dr. J, Dr. J, and I said to my dad, a doctor plays for the Sixers, and that was my indoctrination right there. Also in '77, my dad went on business up to New York and took me, and we went to a Yankees game 6 of the World Series. Reggie Jackson smacks 3. That was my first ever baseball game, and so I wasn't really a Phillies fan. I was I respected Michael Jack Smith because it was really him and Reggie Jackson who were battling for who would hit the most home runs really, and I was a little bit jealous of Mike Smith, a hitter in terms of average. Then Reggie was my guy because that 44 is what I wore when I played baseball, and it led me back, going down a rabbit hole to Hank, and then to Willie, and then to Satchel, the Monarchs and everything in that regard, So it was an incredible year for me, growing up in Philadelphia because the history became something. I'm talking about Oscar Charleston, the Philadelphia A's of the Negro Leagues, all of that stuff was happening, and I was trying to soak it all in. I started out in baseball, I was a very good player. I didn't play football and basketball until later on. I was injured, I got pulled back on a hip tackle, my leg was hanging off the gurney, so that was the end of my football career, and it kind of stopped everything in that regard. But growing up in Philadelphia was amazing because of the team that you alluded to, of the city in terms of Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, winning. I was so sad for Doc, watching him every year, by himself, face these, total Boston Celtics teams and LA Lakers teams. And I'm so disgusted because every time they showed that Boston Garden crowd, it made me sick, and, it was really something, but it was, seeing Doc and seeing his weary eyes, before they got Moses, was something. I like Lionel Hollins a little bit, but I was a big Maurice Cheeks fan. I was glad when they drafted Andrew Toney. It
Austin Strangler.
Doc. Yeah, it took a whole lot of pressure off Doc. And, because I remember, in 79, because all the stuff was on tape delay back then, and seeing Magic, celebrate at the crib, my 12-year-old eyes were not dry, and then that same year, Ron Say, for the Dodgers and Steve Garvey go back to back and beat the Yankees in the World Series. And, so it was a lot of bittersweet things going on here, but I was loving, the atmosphere, the city, the camaraderie, the talk. I really wasn't an Eagles fan, because I was Pittsburgh Steelers fans first. Yeah. Back then, we were all kind of Pittsburgh Steelers fans and Pittsburgh Pirates fans. They played, 9 players of the same kind, and it was just a great time for sports. But I was just glad when the year started going, the 83, and Doc finally get his, when Moses comes, and then I'm seeing the craziness of Randall Cunningham, the dominance of, that 1988 to 90, defensive team with Reggie White and all those great players, and then to see, Randall, just run up and down the field, throwing balls 80 yards in the air, that play against Bruce Smith, the Monday night game, it was great here. I am, for some reason, a lover of the enigmas, so it's like Randall, Albert Bell, Chris Webber, those type of players who weren't like the greatest. They had the greatest talent, but they did not get to see their victory in their own self. But it was great to see sports here. Like Tug McGraw came to my banquet when I was a little league player at 12, and signed the ball for me. Got to take a picture with them, so that kind of spurred me on. It kind of incentivized me in baseball to see what I could do in the future, I almost got there. That's all I can say, you know. But it was
Hey,
really
Mike, do you remember? I bet you all you brothers. I don't know. Terrence and Mike Robinson, y'all might be a little young for this. Maybe even you, Michael. But the Sports Illustrated had the cover of Duncan, I think on Kevin McHale, and it says Dr. J jams the Jinx in
well.
Boston.
Oh man!
Do you
So
remember that? You guys, anybody remember that cover?
of course, I had on my wall.
That was on my wall.
Yeah, I would pin tack a bunch of Sports Illustrated covers. You know, it was Reggie Jackson when he was swinging. You know, he had the pinstripes on. And he's almost cross-legged, almost touching the ground.
Yeah.
That cover, you know, was I took out the pages of that Sports Illustrated cover where there was one where Doc was about to dunk on Bird and yeah. You know, he actually missed that dunk. He came back later on and did the same thing, but he missed that dunk that they show prominently.
That's on the cover. And think about this. Sports Illustrated, it was the pinnacle of sports writing at that day. And I don't know if you brothers saw the story last week. Sports Illustrated has been using AI, Terrence, to write stories.
That's crazy.
That is
That's
utterly disgraceful. They were the pinnacle of sports writing.
Well, the National and all that stuff. The National, that's when we had real journalism. I mean, you know, but yeah.
The reason why I call Wilt Chamberlain the GOAT is because of Frank DeForge's writing in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. And now they're using AI. I mean, just totally disgusting.
Right.
It only get worse.
Hey guys, I don't know what I missed. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. We're kind of going around, so we want you to expound on yours too, because you got a unique perspective too, because your city has changed into, you know, a metropolis where it used to be different.
Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, I was college athletics.
Right.
Tennessee State University with the Tiger Bells. You know, the 1956 USA women's track team was the Tennessee State Tiger Bells.
Well, definitely the 60 team. The 60 team.
But with the Tennessee A&I Tiger Bells.
Right.
And you had John Merritt. You had the great Eldridge Dickey, the Lord's Prayer, who if Eldridge was here today, he was everything we see from Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, 60 years ago, fellas. And Mike's an alumnus of TSU. I actually ended up graduating from Virginia Union. But man, at that time, you guys know this, all the great African-American athletes were going to Tennessee State and Grambling. When I watched Georgia and Alabama the other day, the DNA of that game, Alabama State, TSU, Jack State, FAMU, the DNA of them brothers on the field belongs to those schools. I could go on to that, but you're right. Nashville, Mike, has really just grown up into a metropolis, and pro sports was the driving engine. All this took place when the Titans came to town. They didn't actually come to Nashville in '99, but that's
Memphis first.
That's when they came there. And this is a topic I wanted to get all you guys on, and I definitely want to hit some NBA and talk a little hoops to kind of take in Terrence's expertise. But these black quarterbacks, and I think about Vince Young and the bull crap he went through with the Titans in Nashville. Here in Detroit in '91, we had Andre Ware, and they had no idea how to coach that guy. No idea. I covered that team. They didn't know what they were doing with Andre Ware. They shouldn't have drafted him because they didn't know what to do with him.
And he was a history maker. He was a history maker, the first black Heisman quarterback.
As I open up with 16 black quarterbacks starting the NFL season, leading the team. I want to go to Terrence, then Mike Roberson. Get y'all's thoughts on that impact of the black quarterback in today's game. not only on the high school, NFL level, but the college level.
But here's the thing. You remember when they said that the black player wasn't smart enough to be a quarterback?
Yeah.
That even the dominant black, in high school and other sports, they wanted to make them running backs or receivers or DBs or any other position because we weren't smart enough to be quarterbacks, right? And let's be honest with you, one of the greatest quarterbacks that we're seeing today, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is I mean, let's just be honest with you. He's everything that some of these greats are, and he's more athletic. All of these GMs and coaches are trying to get more athletic quarterbacks because these D linemen and these linebackers, I mean, they're running 4.4s and 4.5s.
Yeah.
Tom Brady ain't getting by one of those dudes.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning ain't getting by one of those dudes. Joe Montana is not getting by. As great as quarterbacks they are, Dan Marino, they have the arm, but they don't have the athleticism. Give me a quarterback that has the arm, has the brain, and has the athleticism.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing. It's almost like in basketball where they're looking for bigs that can shoot a three, as opposed to a player on the block. They want quarterbacks that are athletic, fast, can throw, not just someone who's going to stay in the pocket. Stay in the pocket game don't work anymore.
And Mike Taylor and Bill Polian said that Lamar Jackson ought to move to I don't know if it was wide receiver or running back. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
speak to that.
He said he was too slight.
Yeah.
I've probably written over 100 articles on black quarterback. I think one of the first ones was called "A Black Quarterback Changed the Narrative." Speaking about Brandon with Doug and Warren Moon, the 6 years of CFL championships, comes here, and still, throws for a bunch of yards with that gimmick with Mouse Davis offense, right?
Yeah.
See Willie Totten, Jerry Rice, Gilliam, Harris, basically were robbed of years, like I said, I alluded to Randall Cunningham earlier, what Buddy Ryan misused him. He led the Eagles 4 straight years. Of course, Warren Moon, I was the receiver that should have been quarterback. So when my sons were born, I said they both gonna be quarterbacks. It just was a different time then. The high school that I went to, when I played in Delaware, I was one of only three black baseball players in the whole state in high school.
Dang.
Yeah. So it was really something. It was a different time. They weren't ready for, the athleticism at the quarterback position. Even though in high school we had a quarterback named Richie Miles who was like a Mr. Trubisky type. You're seeing, even biracial, if you will, quarterbacks now that are black. It's crazy for me this year. You're seeing so many quarterbacks play against each other. And even when they get injured, the backups that come in are still black. It's something. It's this year, like it's this year right here. I'm a big Cam Newton fan. I thought that he was the prototype at quarterback, given his size and strength, arm strength, exuberance, leadership capabilities. The fact that he could. The kids would come down from the tops of the stadiums when he would get into the red zone for a chance to get the ball, So one of those kids get the ball, if he grows to be 7 foot, he still might want to play quarterback. That's what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
The influence, back in the 70s and 80s, we saw, Texas might have a quarterback, Jamil Holloway and Charles Thompson, Tony Rice, those dudes do the thing in a wishbone. Tommy, that was my man from
Nebraska.
Tommy Frazier.
Tommy Frazier. Yeah.
it was incredible time back then, but you never. It was almost like thinking of, will we ever see a black president? All those black quarterbacks. We knew that they weren't Major Harris. Like I just talked to Randy Moss and interviewed him about Major Harris. Major Harris was the guy for me, and he was the wink at the future, and we, as we see now, they're everywhere. Have you guys noticed it was just like a 6'7", almost 340-pound quarterback that's still in high school?
Yeah, that's against the law. It should be against the law.
I feel this is the future is this for me. I feel that small forwards and power forwards, because they are lax in the middle of the field, will begin to play quarterback. If you see like an Andre Drummond out there at quarterback, which will happen, it's really going to be unstoppable. What I think is going to happen is the offensive linemen are going to get smaller and faster, because it's going to be very difficult for defenses, to really contain these dudes if they're LeBron James size. The one thing I talked to LeBron, like I always wanted to get this in the air, speaking into the existence. I spoke to LeBron around the time Terrell Pryor was doing this thing at Ohio State, and Terrell Pryor obviously was, big, strong, ran a 4.3, and I would ask LeBron, what if he was a quarterback in the NFL? And he told me that, he played in high school. He was like a third-string guy. They were bringing him in to throw flea flickers so he could throw the ball 50 yards in the air. I wanted that conversation to start. It became a State Farm commercial, our interview. I'll never get paid for that. I'm kind of hot for that, But, I'm looking to the future, as Wembanyama is doing his thing in the NBA, there's going to be that freaking nature that eventually is going to play the quarterback. If he can run, if he has any kind of agility, like you're going to see like a really change in what's going on, because right now I think everybody's being lumped together. I still feel that Deshaun Watson is the best out of all of them, in terms of his strengths coming into the NFL. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to get it back, but, he was kind of the guy after Cam for me. Cam more in a physical way, but Deshaun Watson, it seemed like he was doing things. It didn't matter who his receivers were, he was basically C.J. Stroud as a rookie before he got hurt. If you guys remember, he was on par to set the record, for TDs as a rookie. The thing that has to change, obviously, and me having these conversations with these athletes, whether I like to have trans articles, a conversation that really transcends whatever sport they're playing. So I would talk to LeBron about what would happen if, Eddie House was a receiver, and stuff like that. But what's going to change this whole paradigm is when the quarterbacks retire and become coaches. I'm hot. Like I don't want to hear Shanahan's name ever again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're gonna hear it the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because his father did a disservice to RG3. He was running him down the middle of the field on the scene against Ryan Clark in the Pittsburgh Steelers. These dudes, I feel, are just beginning to understand how to utilize these players. Aaron Rodgers to me was the initial prototype, because in college, in high school, and then in college, he was used as a runner at times. When he came to the NFL, because of, them wanting to keep their golden boy upright and clean of jersey, he was not running as much. But when he came into the league, when you needed to get a first down, he would get it. I thought that was the initial way of using the mobile quarterback. Now you're seeing, different type of styles Lamar Jackson, 3,000 yards almost every year. Jalen Hurts with the brotherly sub will most likely approach 100 touchdowns if this play continues to be legal. You're seeing in C.J. Stroud. You're going to see Michael Penix Jr. come into the league, who's very underrated, but he has an incredible arm. His incredible accuracy is something that is very much understated because they're trying to get this Bo Nix, this Heisman Trophy winner. So you're not hearing as much as you should about Michael Penix, even though he's beaten Bo Nix twice. They try to elevate him over Penix in his Heisman Trophy race, and he still beat him in Vegas when everybody think they were going to blow Washington out. They were favored, by 10 points?
Yeah, 9.5. Yeah.
9.5. So, you're seeing a different style. You're seeing a bunch of guys like Penix and Hurts, to me, mirror each other in terms of their poise. Now, you did see Penix, and will have his head, when the guy was kicking a field goal, so obviously he's trying to keep his motions intact. But in terms of him having to make a play on the field when it's needed to be made, that's what you're seeing out of these black quarterbacks now. And they're also making the conventional plays, so they're making it easier on these coaches and also giving these coaches a lot of credit that they don't deserve because of what they do on the field.
Yeah. Mike Roberson.
All right. Well, before I get into my diatribe, I didn't get a chance to talk about me growing up in between Milwaukee and Chicago. So I had nothing but losing for me growing up, watching Walter Payton do his thing, but the Bears were garbage, Packers were garbage, and then the Bucks were, so-so, especially after they let Kareem go. So it was kind of tough for me growing up. And then, of course, like Mike, at the same time, I was a Steelers, Pirates, Spurs. And that's because all three had my favorite player, the Iceman on the Spurs, Dave Parker on the Pirates, and then Lynn Swann on the Steelers. So, of course, none of my local teams won until my freshman year in college when the Bears won. So I said, I'm not even at home and they win. So that was crazy. But as for, as we're talking about for this, for me, I was really disappointed, and I was in college at the time, when McPherson from Syracuse didn't win the Heisman. They gave it to Tim Brown. I don't want to shun on the brother, but he was a Notre Dame guy. So it's like, growing up in my area, we couldn't stand Notre Dame. And it's kind of ironic that I was at Notre Dame earlier this year talking to Marcus Freeman. Well, no, I talked to Marcus Freeman when they came out here, but, we went up against them at Notre Dame. So for me, finally being on that campus was kind of weird. But growing up, you grew up in the Midwest, you either hate or love Notre Dame. So I had to deal with that growing up. But when McPherson was putting up huge numbers, and it probably should have been the first black Heisman quarterback, they gave it to Tim Brown, and it took until Andre Ware did it on that superficial offense they had in Houston, because David Klingler did the same thing. They scored like 70 points a game. So, he won the Heisman, but was it warranted, or is it because of the offense? It's like Steve Nash with those 2 MVPs. Was it because of D'Antoni's offense? Because guess who else won under D'Antoni?
Yeah, because he Bo Nixed them.
James Harden, So Bo Nix, and I covered the Pac-12, which is now defunct, but I covered the Pac-12, so I saw Penix and I saw Bo. They both played well against Stanford, which is not saying much. But last year, I saw when Caleb did his thing, and I said, "Man, if this dude plays like this anymore, he's gonna be Heisman." Little did I know, he ended up being a Heisman. But this year, he kind of fell off a little bit. But the thing about it is, even though if you really look at it from a long perspective, that you have half of the quarterbacks being black, you still got to say, hey, you know what? We should be happy, but not satisfied, because the league is still about 70% black. So that should be commensurate with your quarterbacks. So it's a great time, and this is the best we've ever seen, but we still have to say, you know what? We deserve more. And
there's still progress to be made.
And I think
next level will be more.
I think more on the way. I'll tell you what, if Bo Nix wins the Heisman, man, you got to just close the Heisman.
Brace yourself. I think it's happening. I think it's going to happen.
If he wins the Heisman, they ought to just it's not gonna happen.
I'm gonna tell you why he's gonna win. It's because they see their sons.
Yeah.
They see their sons, and Bo Nix is the representation of what will be the past.
Yeah.
Jalen, it's a
Bo Nix is just another Jones for New England.
Yeah, this short passing game, crossing routes. There's a chance right here this year that they can be another set of black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson's getting there. Like I think he's getting there because Zay Flowers is playing out of his mind, and if they could somehow get healthy too. But what happened when Mark Andrews went down? That other receiver tight end just can't step right up. So Lamar is feeling very comfortable. I think that Odell Beckham is biding his time, getting reacclimated, and
getting healthier.
Yes, he's going to be the Anquan Bolden type guy, later on, because those veterans, as we see, regardless of sport, once they get into the playoffs, they begin to shine. I really feel this is Lamar Jackson's year. He's flying on the radar a little bit. Like they don't really talk about him as a true MVP candidate, but I think that with people saying that the AFC is the strongest conference, with Buffalo kind of dropping off and also Cincinnati, we don't know what's going to happen with the Jaguars. I think that Lamar Jackson is going to have a path, given that he's only going to have to play 2 games to get there, and both of them are going to be at home.
Yeah, that was a terrible loss by Jacksonville the other night to
Kansas City too.
Kansas City, yeah. Hey guys, before we get out of here, I do want to touch on the IST, the in-season tournament in the NBA. I want to start with Terrence and get your thoughts. And Terrence, quickly, because guys, actually, I got to get out of here, and I apologize for that. But Terrence, your thought on the season so far, and the IST in-season tournament.
The funny thing, when it first started, I was really confused about it. Like, why are they doing something like this?
I still am.
But then when you start watching the games, and every game has been really competitive. Every game in that in-season tournament has almost been playoff-like atmosphere. This is the first time that most of these players, outside of those that went to college, are playing in a one-and-done type something. So I'm liking it from a perspective where the competition is really intense. I don't know how it will translate into the rest of the season for some of these teams. I mean, you look at the final 4 teams in the in-season tournament. I don't see those as the 4 best teams in the NBA. But from a fan's perspective, from a media perspective, from advertisers and TV money, it's great for the NBA. I like the competitive games and the competitive nature of these games. So, it's something that they do in European basketball. When I played over in the Philippines, they played these type of in-season tournaments. So,
Has anything in the season so far, any team surprised you or not surprised you?
Minnesota's 15-3. That's surprising. I didn't see that coming. That's surprising.
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, Anthony. Michael Robinson. I'm gonna let Michael Tillery take us home. Your thoughts on the NBA season and the tournament so far, Mike? Mike Robinson.
Oh, me? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
You have Tillery go last. Okay, all right. So for me, of course, this Final Four. It's kind of like a dream situation that you would like to see in the finals if somehow the Lakers and the Bucks play, because these got to be 2 of the most popular guys in the world, Giannis and LeBron. And of course you got AD and then Damian Lillard. That also brings some juice to it too. But and then that's of course would be a bonanza for the NBA if these 2 do play in this championship. Now, Halliburton is doing a lot for Indiana. He's really bringing up the energy there. And then, of course, people we want to see the Pelicans, want to see Zion explode and all that. So these are 4 teams, even though Terrence said they're probably not the best 4, but they are 4 teams that garner interest from a lot of people around the world because they each have at least one superstar on there. I mean, and we could say Halliburton's becoming one. But that's right there is exciting. And as for the season itself, I mean, Minnesota is a surprise, especially when a lot of shots are taking that cat, about not really playing hard and being weak and all that. And then, of course, this whole headlock situation didn't help either. And that, of course, kind of goes over to Golden State, too, about how they're not playing as well. And now people are mad at Day. Of course, when they get to the playoffs, when he basically does a move where he punks out Jason and Jalen and those guys, I mean, then they love him again. And that's what happened in the finals when Boston came in with all the momentum, looked like they're going to win easily. And once Day got going, it pretty much messed up their psyche. So it's hard to say really, will this have an effect on the rest of the year? Or is it just some juncture in the season that says, hey, that was fun, but okay, now back to reality. And
and Mike Taylor, we really won't know the season till after the trading deadline, till these rosters get finalized. But your thoughts on the season, Mike Tillery, and talk to us about that whole thing with Harden and Philly.
Okay, so I think that Terrence made a great point that I hadn't thought about. Him speaking about the players, gaining the experience of a one and done tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what is going to heighten the competitive balance in the NBA, given that people are going to get this exposure to something that can spur a playoff atmosphere, as Terrence again, correctly stated. It's incredible. Like Flex Halley, Halliburton to me is that guy that can step into an MVP, reign. He is like, I'm seeing something super special. It's because like him and his dad got this special relationship, and when his dad's on the sideline and that's my boy doing that stuff in the crowd like all our fathers did, it almost makes him uncomfortable, which is funny to me. When his mom and dad walk up and hug him, he's almost embarrassed. He's like, "Oh, mom, oh, dad," like a little boy, So he still has that youthful exuberance that's going to spur him, and this tournament in particular, because he's going to get a lot of fans who don't know who he is, because he's played in Sacramento and also for the Pacers, a lot of their friends, parts of the nation don't really get a chance to see him. They just hear his name, they see his statistics, they know he's playing well, but for them to see him play, is going to give him those shoulder chips and incentivize him to become even a more stellar player as he goes against these already established players in NBA like LeBron and Giannis, in a team with the Pelicans. Here in Philadelphia is a real surprise for me. I was so mad at the front office when they took the power away from Elton Brand. And when they gave it to this paper champion and Daryl Maxey, I knew that it was almost the beginning of the end. They put a mask, a Freddie mask, basically.
You mean Maury? Daryl Morey.
Yeah. That's how Maxey on the mind, right? Yeah. Maury, to me, has torn apart this team. How the way that they mischaracterize what happened with Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons. I thought it was to lie to the fans like that. For him to even lie to Harden, like, I can't stand James Harden. Because we in Philadelphia need effort. We need effort. If we lose, so what? If we lose by 40, like when I was a baseball player, no matter if we was down up 20-0 or winning 20-0, I was head first sliding in the third base. That's just how I did it. That's how I played. That's how we played here. So to see Harden basically do what LeBron did against Dallas Mavericks and pass up open layups to kick out for threes, it was very weird to me. It was very weird what was happening with Joel Embiid last year going up against a smaller Boston Celtics team, and him not really, stamping his face and name on the game and taking over, given that this is a rivalry. I mean, they had Julius Erving in the stands, you know what I'm saying, praising when Harden has this great game and they win. I don't care what happened with Harden and Morey. I don't care. If you want to step on that floor, you better perform. He did not perform. I'm glad he's gone. I was more partial to Ben Simmons because I know him kind of personally, and I know what was really going on with him. And I was one of the only writers here in Philadelphia that would talk about, his issues with his family, And, I was sad to see him go because they basically booted him out of town for a not taking dunk, but he held Trae Young to 5 for 25 in that same game. To get rid of a defensive player was a top tier defensive player was bad for me. They also had Matisse Thybulle. That team when they were together, they were a special defensive team. So now, in the future, everybody's going, Joel Embiid and win MVP, and having that Andrew Toney, type of player and Maxey, who steps up. He shows up. No matter what is happening in his life, you will know that he will give full effort. He still has this boyish type of thing going on as he grows. He's probably so happy to be in the NBA. Even though he was, going to a blue blood in Kentucky, for him to be here and doing what he's doing, and also running the team right now, it is very surprising. Like, I don't think anybody here thought that the Sixers would be in a position they are in right now, given what transpired last year with Harden. Like, something like.
Well, I personally thought Doc Rivers made a big mistake putting the ball in Harden's hand and taking it out of Maxey's hand.
Yes,
I thought Maxey was the best player.
I wrote it. Doc is a friend of mine because when he was on TV, so he speaks to the media. We have a great relationship with him when he was here. I'm sad to see Doc go. I wasn't a Nurse fan because I was like, what has he done besides Kawhi? But he has changed the metal of this team. He's changed the locker room. He's changed how the fans look at the Sixers. We're cautiously optimistic because the rest of the teams in the city are very successful right now. And it harkens back to what Mike was talking about, how we grew up in the area when all the teams were good. All the teams are good. Once again, we try and get the Flyers a little boost, but all the teams are good here. So we feel very fortunate, going forward. I'm also very surprised with the Orlando Magic, and what they're doing, down there, because, like Minnesota, what we're seeing in Minnesota is the emergence of basketball guy and Anthony Edwards. He is, from him going from, the FIBA and doing what he did there, he took all of that back with him into the NBA. I remember talking to LeBron, before he went to Beijing and said, what will you take back? What will you bring back, from the Olympics? He brought back a penchant for defense. He tried to say, oh, nah, I ain't going to learn nothing, whatever. He was a better defensive player when he came back. You're seeing Anthony Edwards' leadership abilities and saying to himself, there is nothing that this league can do to stop me, no matter who's in front of me. Like, he has that confidence now. It wasn't just that dunk last year that they waved off. This is him doing it now every game as he is growing into his super body. This playing athletes in the NBA, playing athletes in basketball is something. The reason why Allen Iverson was so unstoppable because his quick twitch, when he went to jump for his jump shot, you didn't feel like you could match his athleticism going up because it was so fast.
Yeah.
You're seeing the same thing in Anthony Edwards now because he's a monster. He's a true monster. But you got a monster down there in Orlando too. The league is in some great hands.
Hey guys, I got to get out of here. I want to thank you, Terrence and Mike, for checking in with us. This was a tremendous conversation. It is certainly good to be back. We will definitely have you brothers back real soon. And Mike Robinson, always, brother, always a pleasure getting with you. But I want to thank everybody tuning in, and hopefully we'll get back on our regular schedule now. Have a great rest of the week. For Michael Tillery, Terrence Mullen, Michael Robinson, I'm Rickey Hampton. Peace, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Yo, it was a big